Hi everybody. Hi everybody and welcome to Gravel Union Talks, a podcast series full of inspiring stories, news and events from the world of gravel. Each month we will be talking with guests who are passionate about riding off the beaten track, adventure riding, bikepacking and gravel racing. I'm your host Carlo, and behind the microphone in Newcastle it's Ollie. Hi Ollie, how you doing?
Very good, thank you. How's things with you?
Well, haven't been on the bike too much lately, but I'm working on that. You've been riding in the Dolomites.
Yeah, which was really fun. It wasn't gravel riding, I should say. It was mountain biking, but it was super good.
I'm going to visit Dolomites next year. It's on my
The scenery is incredible.
Incredible.
But plenty hard. Take your climbing legs with you. We
I know.
I think every day we did 2,000 meters of climbing, and the big days were 3,000 plus, so it's plenty climbing.
But the scenery is really impressive.
Yeah.
Oh well, let's start with the introduction. When gravel riding first started to get popular around 10 years ago, any events that were held tended to be community-based, laid back in nature, and were very low key. Over the last few years, though, we've seen an explosion in the popularity of gravel racing. Although there are huge numbers of events all over the world, it was arguably the arrival of the UCI on the gravel scene, racing scene back in 2022, which really kick-started the gravel racing phenomena. With races often seeing more than 1,000 entrants signing up, what can organizers do to make the racing as fair as possible for everyone? Our guest in this episode is elite level racer Caroline Livesey, freshly crowned as the Scottish National Gravel Champion, and we're going to talk to her about not always positive experiences gravel racing as an elite women rider. But before we head over to Caroline, what's your main topic of this month, Ollie?
We'll try and pick a topic each month that's kind of relevant to our guests. So we've got a couple of stories that feature women particularly, but we're going to do slightly left field this month. Like most websites or media companies, we look at Google Analytics and figure out which of our stories are popular and try and work out why. And sometimes stories that I think really should be popular just don't get the eyeballs that they ought to. So I'm going to highlight three that I think were super good stories. But
you're going to guide the audience a bit.
I know it's odd, and there's no logic to why
we know
some are popular.
In the top 10 for years, the gravel for starters, gravel bikepacking for starters. Episode 1 is like a hit for the last 4 years. But there are
stories that I think are just as good, and they don't get anything like as much interest. So I found three that.
Yeah, let's highlight those. Highlight.
Yeah, exactly it. So the first one was but this is a kind of a tech feature one, I suppose, looking at a bike particularly. For the growth in the last couple of years in the gravel world has been tyre volume, and lots now. It's becoming more and more common for 50mm clearance is pretty standard. And if you're a bloke and you're buying a standard 54 size frame, it's dead easy to find one that will take big tyres. But women's bikes, it's much harder. And there's a few companies who are starting to pioneer it, and Liv is one of them, who are a sister company of Giant, but they're devoted solely to women's bikes. And they make a bike handily called the Devote, which does take 50mm tyres. So I contacted the marketing team there, and they lent us a bike. So we did an editorial all about this bike and why the benefits to women are just the same as they are to men, and perhaps even more important, that they're comfortable, that they've got more grip, so it makes it safer. There's less puncture risk. It just ticks every box for being nice to ride. So it is a story all about this amazing bike and how great it is.
Yeah, people should definitely look into that. And also looks are important, but
it's a great looking bike. It just looks fast even when it's parked, which is a good sign for a bike.
And the next article we're going to highlight is actually on a magazine.
Yeah, which is quite strange because we're totally digital, but there's something really lovely about the print world and having a magazine in your hands. The feel of the paper, the look of the beautiful photographs, even the smell of it. There's just something great about it. And we came across a German company who produced a magazine called Golden Ride they only do 4 a year, but they've got parallel ones. So they do one on gravel riding, one on mountain biking, and one on winter sports. And recently they did a gravel edition, and it's absolutely amazing. It's all it's mainly a women-based team, and it's only women contributors from all different walks of life, and they've got everything from pro racers to bike packers to a lady who does custom bike painting, and a whole variety of other things as well. And it's super, and you can buy it all over Europe. They'll send it to you. And it's just a really lovely thing. So it's I got a copy of it, and it was just really lovely to read.
And it's a small team. I think it's a small
very
project.
Small team. Three people who run it, and then a bunch of different contributors.
So
yeah,
we support that. So please, order a copy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not expensive considering the quality of it. I think it worked out to be delivered. It was something like €15, which, considering the quality, I thought was amazing. So yeah, highly recommended.
Well, and you support the communities also.
Exactly.
You have a great magazine, and you support community.
Yeah.
One medical article on the
totally
roster.
Different to anything we've done before. Each month I send out the newsletter, and I get a surprising amount of feedback from people that say thanks, and that was interesting, and I really like this story, or have you thought about this? And I had one came in. It was partly because I'd been ill last month, and a lady wrote in and said, "Oh, your symptoms sound like you have Lyme disease." So I looked up what it was and did some research into it, and she said, "I think it'd be a good topic because it's so relevant to gravel riders." And Lyme disease is something you pick up anytime you're out really somewhere grassy. So kind of if you're riding on moorland, if you're doing farmers' fields, if you're somewhere kind of that's green, but even urban parks apparently now. And it's a blood-borne disease that you pick up from ticks. And ticks are absolutely tiny. They're about the size of a pinhead. They bite into your skin, and they inject you with the bacteria that leads to this disease. If you catch it early enough, it's totally treatable, and antibiotics will kill it. If you don't treat it, or you don't catch it early enough, it can have really serious long-term consequences. So it was a story all about, first of all, what is it? Secondly, how do you identify it? And thirdly, how do you kind of deal with it, and how treatment and all the rest of it. So it's not going to be ever a super popular story, but it's something relevant to everybody who goes gravel riding.
Well, when I was reading it, I thought, I knew about ticks, and I knew about the consequences, and that Lyme disease is, might be in worst case the end of. But it's good to read it because, we know it exists. But you even have like an example. Okay, this is how it looks like.
Yeah,
and this is how you remove the ticks, because if you do that in time, there's no issue.
Exactly.
But it's all about awareness, I think.
Yep.
Well, those 3 articles will rise in our top 10, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Next month they will be the most popular articles. Well, what do you think? Let's move over to Caroline.
Great.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, so we're going to talk to our main guest in this episode, which is Caroline Livesey. So, Caroline, thanks very much for joining us. We ought to start, first of all, you need to tell us where you are in the world. What can you see out of the window from where you're recording?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me on. You've actually found me at a time. We come every year to a small Hebridean island off the west coast of Scotland called Tyre. I've been coming here every year since I was a baby. And my family have kind of come here for I don't know, 100 years now or something.
Wow.
So it's really a really special place to me. We come up and just enjoy the outdoors. It's pretty windswept today. I can see a pretty dreich morning of fog and wind, and we have a bit of a hurricane sitting off the coast, but it's going to be good surf, so we'll be off out in the ocean a bit later.
Oh, okay,
Great.
Excellent.
So we'll start with an icebreaker first of all. We tried to figure out a way of getting to know people as much as we can, but without making it a kind of a interrogation. So the good question to start off with is: can you remember your first bike? And if so, what was it, and what did you love about it?
Yeah, I can remember. My dad bought me my first sort of road bike. At the time, we called it a racing bike
Yeah.
with drop handlebars. It was a purple and white rally. And I think I just loved the fact that it was fast because it had skinny tires. And before that, I think I'd probably been on some, child's mountain bike or something. And it was also the first bike that was mine, not a hand-me-down from my brother. So yeah, I do remember that. But I didn't really get into proper cycling until much later in life. That was just
Okay.
a child's toy.
Yeah.
I didn't really start cycling until I was in my 20s.
Okay. Right, and we'll get onto that in a little bit, but we ought to do a kind of an overview of you first of all. So you've described yourself as an extreme triathlete and an adventurer, but you've done tons of other stuff as well. So you've done ultra cycle events. You won the Scottish National Gravel Championship last weekend or the weekend before. Yeah, you run a podcast with your husband. You're an author. You've done lots of articles for Gravel Union, for example, but other places as well. It's a heck of a lot of things to try and juggle together, but we thought we ought to start. We've never had, I don't think, an extreme triathlete on the podcast before.
No,
so
never. No.
First question is, what is an extreme triathlon and how did you get into it?
So an extreme triathlon is so Ironman distances, so long course distances, which is a 3.8 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer bike, and then a marathon, so 42 kilometer run.
That sounds crazy.
Yeah, and then the extreme part of it is they are usually set somewhere in the world with extreme geography of some sort, or usually geography and climate. So it's either really cold or really hot, and then the elevation is the thing that is extreme. So the elevation on the bike can be, some of them are to 3,000 meters, and then the run is off road. So the bike is road bike.
Okay.
So you're usually riding a time trial bike, sometimes a road bike, and then. But the run is off road, so the marathon will be a mountain marathon of some sort. It'll be on trails or up a mountain or some crazy thing like that.
Okay.
And I guess the reason I got into it was because I used to do Ironman. I was a professional Ironman athlete, and I just got a bit bored of doing the same thing.
It just wasn't hard enough.
It wasn't hard enough. I think that, but I think also Ironman went towards this model of just having pretty flat bike courses and flat runs, and I'm much more a hill rider. I love hills, and with respect to other athletes, I was always better on hilly courses. So comparatively speaking, I would always aim for, Ironman Lanzarote or Ironman UK or Wales,
Okay.
the ones where it was tough. And yeah, so I eventually moved across. So Norseman is the extreme triathlon that most people will have heard of.
Mm-hmm.
That's the World Championships of Extreme Triathlon in Norway. And I've done that one and a few others. I've won Patagon Man twice, which is down in the bottom of Chile, which is just an incredible race. So
great.
Impressive.
It sounds crazy. The thought of even just the distances boggles my brain, let alone doing them one after the other, and then with altitude or difficult terrain or whatever as well.
How much time do you need to recover from such an extreme triathlon? Or
that's $1 million question, and it just depends on. I always think with those types of races, you have, that distance, you have a sort of 6-week minimum, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I've also raced back to back a month apart, and that's been fine. And then other times I've taken 2 months or 3 months to recover from a race. I think it really can depend on, especially on the climate. If you have a really hot race where you really have to dig deep and your body is suffering a lot because of the heat and dehydration, then it can take a lot longer. But equally, if you've had a race where you've had near hypothermia because of the cold, the year Norseman, I did Norseman, it was the wind chill factor on the plateau where you ride was like -4. So
yeah.
it was really cold. And then the run was hot. So your body is dealing with these massive changes in temperature during the day, and you're having to use a lot of energy to bring your body temperature back up or bring it down. And that can take a lot out of you.
Yeah, probably with your experience, sometimes you will notice yourself that it takes a little bit more time, or you're okay to do something else again.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
well, it's
Do,
well, it seems to be well. I don't. To be honest, Ollie, not for me.
no, too hard for me too. Do you have a favourite, Caroline, of the ones that you've done?
Yeah, Patagon Man, without a doubt. It's
Because of the geography, kind of location based, or other reasons?
there's so many factors that go into that. And like I've enjoyed all of the races I've done really. But Patagon Man is special because partly of where it is, it's so remote. It's in a very like wild part of Chile. The people there are incredible. The organizers are great, but the family that comes together around the race is also with the other athletes and all of the support crews that go down there to support their athletes. Everyone brings, 2, 3, 5 people with them.
Okay.
And the atmosphere is fantastic, and it's such a tough race, but so beautiful. And I guess also when you win a race, you have very positive memories of it. So
Yeah.
to go there and win twice was, it was just amazing. So
And from triathlon, you branched out into ultra distance racing after that, and you've done the ones that are kind of famous in the gravel world, at least the Badlands in Spain and the Transcordilleras in Colombia, which you're completely hooked on, aren't you? Now you've done it multiple times in a row. What inspired you to move away from triathlon, or to go sideways from triathlon into ultra distance racing?
it's all sort of mixed up actually. Like there's not been a switch completely. I'm still racing triathlon this year. I just did the Alpe d'Huez. Last year I just won the Patagon Man in December. So, it's sort of all happening together. But
Okay.
I guess what happened was in 2021 we just had this idea for a project to go to Costa Rica and try to ride coast to coast in 2 days across Costa Rica, and that involved riding on gravel. And before that I'd only ever been a road cyclist, time trial bike, road bike, that was it. And then we rode across Costa Rica in this mad adventure over 2 days, and and it involved a lot of gravel riding, and I got hooked. I was terrible at it. My technical skills were terrible.
Okay.
But
And the risk of being judgmental is pretty typical of a triathlete.
yes. And it would, and it would be, and there's so many triathletes now who do all of their training on Zwift. They only race outside. They only ride outside when they're racing, and a lot of the time those races are very straight, flat courses. So I get it. But there are also amazing bike handlers who are triathletes, people that have come from all different backgrounds of cycling. But I wasn't one of them. And I think it was the new challenge of riding off road. And then we were looking for, I guess, other endurance projects to do, and we came across Badlands, and that was the start for me. The first race I then did was Tracker in preparation for Badlands. That was the first time I'd raced on gravel, and I was literally hooked on the spot.
Brilliant.
But I was still terrible technically. So I then spent a lot of time improving my technical skills off road so that I could race effectively on the single day gravel races, which is what I love. I like the ultra, but honestly, Badlands was such an emotional and raw experience for me. I don't know if I really want to go back to do a non-stop anytime soon.
Okay.
But Transcordilleras is more my thing because it's stage racing. Every day is, every day you get a different stage, totally different geography, geology, the distances vary, the altitude varies. You get a different challenge every day, but every night you get to stop and sleep. And I like that.
Right. And not in a ditch either. You get to sleep in a hotel or a B&B or
exactly.
But do you think that because emotionally it's like mentally so tough? I see people doing the Atlas Mountain Race now, and it never stops. I mean, is that the most difficult part of doing a race like that? That like you said, if you do a stage race, you race hard for and then stage ends, and then you have a drink, you have a proper bed, etc. What's the most difficult part of those?
The most difficult thing for me about Badlands was the pain in my body. And maybe if I was to do more of them, that would, you'd get more used to it and it would reduce. But I'm not at a stage in my life particularly where I want to put my body through so much pain and trauma. That's not to say that Transcordilleras is not painful and traumatic, but it's different because you do get that recovery period each night. I got to the end of Badlands and I had 4 different injuries, you know, like knee, back, my lower back was so painful, my neck was sore, my shoulders were sore, just everything was so had taken such a battering.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, the sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
And I'm actually from a military background. Many moons ago, I spent 10 years in the army, and so I did a lot of sleep deprivation in a previous life. And I know how bad it is for you long term. You can't keep doing multiple periods of massive sleep deprivation like that every year regularly and not feel the effects in some way and damage your brain and damage your body. So Mark and I then, Mark has actually done across Andes as well. And after he did that, we decided, okay, we're going to have like a 300, 400K limit.
Yeah.
Where we do a race that maybe you can do in a period of time which is not too long and you can finish and then you can sleep. But anything that's going to, 1,000K or 1,500, if we go and do a race like that, we're going to do it together as a bike packing adventure where we stop every night and we have a minimum of 5 or 6 hours sleep.
Yeah.
Because for us that, otherwise it becomes a chore riding. And I love riding my bike. I don't want it to be a chore. And at the end of Badlands, at the end of Badlands, it was just like, just really hard work.
Right. Okay. Because I agree, but what I sometimes feel is that some people push their limits so far that it's as an outsider looking. Sometimes, not always, and I know that you have to push yourself, but sometimes I feel like, okay, aren't we overdoing it a bit?
Yeah, and I actually wrote something for Gravel Union on this after Mark did Across Andes. We wrote it together. And it's a question we asked in that article. Is it safe for people? And what are we trying to prove by this sleep deprivation? I understand about riding long distances, and I think that's great, and people should push the limits and how far they can ride if that's what they want to do. But I don't think the general public understand necessarily what the impacts of sleep deprivation can be. And for me anyway, I think it would be better if race organizers were to establish points and events that are longer than 24 hours where people have mandatory sleep stops. Even if it's just for a few hours. Yes, some events do, and I think that's great.
We're going to talk about the racing a little later, but I think there's an overlap in everything's exploding, and we also for safety and health reasons. Well, we should maybe. I agree. Like every 24 hours, you should at least have like a stop of 5 hours, maybe 6 hours, because I sometimes see like racing, the ultra racing. It seems like. Who can do with the lessest amount of sleep and that's I don't know.
And I do think there's a massive safety implication, and it's also one of the reasons why I won't do any road ultras, because I've heard too many stories and met too many people who've had accidents on roads where there's cars around, where they've been sleep deprived or they're riding in the middle of the night, so the driver is sleep deprived or drunk. And I just think that it's a risk that we need to be more aware of. Sleep deprivation can make you do very strange things, make you make very strange decisions. And it's, when you're riding a bike, I mean, it's just very dangerous.
Okay. Right, we're going to move on to day racing, which isn't your current love, isn't it? You kind of moved on again. You've career progression, so you've done now a whole bunch of single day races, and you've competed for Team GB at the UCI Gravel Worlds, and we ought to talk about the Scottish Championships, which was a couple of weekends ago as well.
Congrats.
Yeah,
thank you.
For when we talk to you, most people listening to this will listen to your voice and they'll say, she doesn't have a Scottish accent. How can she
I even noticed I'm Dutch, so
So how does it work, Caroline, that you competed in the Scottish National Championships, even though to us you don't sound Scottish?
Oh, I am fully fledged Scottish, I'm afraid.
Just lost your accent.
I can put on a McTavish accent if you want me to.
Right.
No, I mean, I'm born and brought up in Edinburgh.
Okay.
The Edinburgh accent's not that thick, and my
Yeah.
parents don't really have strong accents, so I guess that's why. But yeah, born and brought up in Scotland. I now live in Mallorca, and because I was in the army and I've moved around a lot, I've never lived in Scotland since I was about 18. So I guess I lost the accent that way. But
Okay.
yeah, definitely eligible for Scottish national champion
Great.
title.
And how was it? Because it's the first time it's been held. What was it like as an event?
Fantastic. Yeah. So Outsider Events ran the national championships. It was in a wind farm, so a wind turbine farm
Okay.
called Whitley, which is just south of Glasgow, and I've never been there before. And you know, whatever you think of wind turbines, when they build them, they make amazing gravel roads. So it's a fantastic place to have an event. It was completely, you didn't have to go on a single road. It was all inside the wind farm, loops
Brilliant.
of 35k or something, 3 loops. So 100k-ish race. And it was rolling, but brilliant gravel. So the climbers were kind of short and not very steep. Fast, really fast. I mean, really fast race, and great atmosphere. It was pretty small, given that it's the first national title they've held. They had an unofficial one last year, but this is the first time it's
Okay.
been Scottish cycling sanctioned.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it'll grow year on year, and I think what the Outsider event team are doing is fantastic. They
Yeah.
definitely gave the women their own race. They gave the men their own race. They gave the age group guys a chance to have their own clean race. They had no inter male female drafting rule, so it was really clean. In fact, we barely saw another male cyclist on the whole time we were out on the course. So it was really good. Good day.
Great. Well, that links very neatly into what we're going to talk about next, which is how elite level racing works or doesn't work if you're particularly for the female racers. So you've done a lot now, haven't you, of pro or elite level racing, and you've written us a really fantastic story which is going to be published today. So by the time this podcast goes out, it will be up on the Gravel Union site, all about how gravel racing, the problems that you face as a woman racer, particularly when it seems to be the kind of the elite level where the men and the women end up being mixed together. Do you want to give us a bit of an overview of what the issues are, and then we can delve into kind of the good parts and the bad parts of different races?
Yeah, sure. And firstly, thank you so much for allowing me to write and publish on the Gravel Union site about this, because I think it's really important that we get the message out to as many riders as we can, as many people as we can in the organizations, the stakeholders in gravel racing. Gravel has grown from a very grassroots, community-based group of riders, and it's exploded in these last few years into something completely different. And I remember even a few years ago, there were sort of 10 events or something in the year in Europe, and now we've got a UCI series with I think 40 events or so, and the Graveler series, which I think has around 20.
Yeah, and they're huge, aren't they, in terms of participation numbers as well?
Yeah, huge participation. The places where they're held are all over Europe and US and Australia and Canada. I mean, all over the world, and they have, you know, it's developed from a sport where people were just going to enjoy having a race off road into this completely fully fledged professional sport. But in the process, there's been this confusion between, well, is it a mass participation fun event with, you know, the spirit of gravel, bringing everyone, inclusivity, bringing everyone together, and just meeting other riders and exploring nature and being out in the wilderness and enjoying that experience together? Or is it a professional sport where we have teams and sponsors and live broadcasts on television and riders and media who, you know, are interested in those riders and personalities and all that sort of thing. And it's both now, which is great. And there's room for everyone, and there's room for both of those sorts of races. But what's the problem, I think, for female professional gravel racing is that we don't have consistency in how those races are run. And so what that's created is this situation where often female professional races are sort of a subset of amateur male races. And we just get mixed in with the amateur male race. There's no rules that, in UCI races anyway, there's no rules that prevent drafting between men and women. In fact, it's almost expected. So if a male peloton goes past you, it's like, well, if you jump on, then you're getting that advantage, and if you don't, well, you missed out. And that's completely different to what the male professional gravel race is, which is a clean race with integrity, with its own race dynamics, and never has any interference, obviously, because they're the fastest riders from other riders. So we've got two things that are kind of not joined up. And that's what I'm trying to make people aware of and hopefully change.
Great. In the latest article, you interviewed a whole bunch of female racers and some race organisers as well to try and get a really good broad picture.
I like the fact that it's so balanced. The article is really balanced. You see all kinds, you know, also the organizer's point of view, which you not always have to agree with, but yeah, it's something that, and that's what I think is really, really important is that, well, last year, a couple of years back, we were going like, okay, this whole race scene is exploding, and what do we think of that? But now the main topic of many organizers and many people who follow the racing is, okay, what should we do about the situation with the female riders? Because, like, last year every event had like an issue or some discussions, and everybody tries to do well, but it's and I like the fact that you balanced the article by giving all kinds of but you also bring like a simple solution is like open category pro men, separate category open men, separate category elite women, and then the age categories. That's the you have a few tips to the organizers, don't you?
Yeah, sure. And I do recognize that it's not necessarily going to have a simple solution for every event. And I recognize also the pressures that event organizers are under. It's not easy organizing an event anywhere. And gravel is quite new. So I think when you go to an authority in a location that hasn't had a gravel event before, and you say, yeah, we're going to do a gravel race, can we have a road closure? And they don't really understand that it's not a road race, it's not a mountain bike race, you know, it's got different requirements. Of course, there's going to be some discussion and development. But what I would really like to see is for organizers to understand in the first place that this is an issue, and that it's something that they have to start thinking about before they start going in to ask authorities for road closures. They have to understand how this race can be made safe and fair for women and for men. And so what do we need in order to achieve that? How long does that road closure need to be? Or do we need to have two? Or does it need to be spread over a longer period of time? Or, you know, whatever it is. And of course, there's cost implications. And of course, the authorities might say no. But at least if they go in there knowing what they should be achieving with a set of guidelines saying, here's what the ideal solution would look like, then they can at least start from that point where, like you say, at the moment, I think the discussion is around what do we do? And people aren't really, you know, race organizers maybe aren't really sure about it, or they think in a lot of cases, they think that women want to race with men, and that's clouding their judgment, or they're using that as something to enable them to not do what they, you know, what is the right thing to do, because, oh, well, it's okay because men don't mind, women don't mind, they don't mind racing with the guys.
Okay.
And I think it's just bringing that awareness to race organizers and to the whole of the gravel world that actually, certainly in the case of female professional cycling in gravel, we need a separate race, and women should not be racing with men.
In an ideal world, you'd want them separated by a significant amount of time, wouldn't you? That's the key thing. So at least an hour or 2 hours, or as many hours as they can
Yeah,
fit into the schedule, so that there's no chance that there'll be crossover between the two separate races. And then there's because of all sorts of issues. So there's a safety issue first of all, that some of the male riders just are too adrenaline fueled or whatever, and they just ride in a way that's not safe. And so, because you've been knocked off, haven't you, during races, and you've had injuries because of it, partly also from a fairness perspective, that if some of the women are getting a tow and are then getting really an easier race out of it, it's not, at the minute it doesn't count as cheating, but it's kind of morally dubious, isn't it? If you can just get towed along by a peloton of very fast men, and then that gets you much higher up the rankings than you would have done naturally, that's obviously it's an unfair advantage. So if you take the men totally out of the situation, so it's only women who are racing at the same time, then that reduces the chances of getting an advantage and makes it safer.
yeah, for sure. And I think the point with safety, I was chatting to somebody about this, and they were saying, "Oh, but what you're saying is that women are not as good riders as men, because they don't want the men around them and they can't handle that dynamic." And that's not the point. If you're even in a group of men and another group of men come through, but those men are twice as strong as you and twice as fast, it's dangerous, because on gravel you don't have the luxury you would have on a road where you could just say, everyone move to the right, and people go past on the other side. In gravel, there's only one line, maybe two. People are all over the place. You're avoiding potholes, you're avoiding stones. There's suddenly a sharp corner. And if people are trying to get through in those situations, what happens is riders block each other, they cross each other's lines. People take the wrong line, they're forced onto a line that they wouldn't have otherwise taken. And so people do fall off, and then that causes other crashes. But also it breaks up groups. So if you're, the example I use in the article at the beginning, if you're in a group of women and you've set off and you're racing and you've dropped some riders, and you're suddenly, there's a group of 10 or 15 of you, which is often what happens at these races, and then you're swamped by 50 guys, then you're gonna lose the rest of that group. You can't stay together. So people get split off, some people crash, people have to put a foot down because they get pushed off their line. Or what happened to me in France, where I had a crash and was taken out of the race because I snapped all the ligaments in my ankle, and the guy carried on. So and it's just trying to get people to understand how that feels and how that is in a race scenario, and that it's, if at all possible, we need to, having a race where you are never going to have any crossover is virtually impossible.
Yeah.
But to have that crossover at a point where it's safer in the race, so it's either later on, or the race organizer calculates it, so it's at a point in the race where the roads, it's either on tarmac or the gravel is wider, not like a single track section. And then also instigating this rule of no intersex drafting, so the men know that if they come across the groups of females, to pass them and not get in the way, and women know that they're not to then jump on and start drafting the guys, then actually the guys are just going to pass you, and it's going to be safer as well, because people are not trying to mold together.
You've highlighted some of the organisers, races that you've taken part in, who are doing a really good job and who are leading the way and kind of setting the gold standard. Do you want to talk about a couple of those events, or perhaps a series as well, and that are doing, and what they're doing that's so good, and you think that hopefully will set the standard for the future?
Yeah, and there are lots of events out there who are doing a great job, and I do think the Gravel Earth series have a good grasp of what's important and why it's important, and they really care about the future of professional gravel racing and the riders who make a living from professional gravel racing. And they already have, the Gravel Earth series already have rules where professional men and professional women cannot draft each other, and they always have separate starts for those two groups, and then there's a mass start usually with the open category behind. I think the difficulty that we have is with the UCI races. firstly, the regulations don't lay out. They're not adequate to provide for a safe and fair start for women. The two options that race organisers have are either set all the elites off together, or set them off with a 1 to 2 minute gap. And then a 1 to 2 minute gap with either the male age groups behind, or in some of them in front, some of them behind. So you're sort of in the middle. And what my point here is, the Gravel Air Series are aiming for 1 to 2 hours, and the UCI are aiming for 1 to 2 minutes. And 1 to 2 minutes with no intersex drafting rule is not a gap. It's just a mass start.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any difference. And then you also get situations where the race organisers don't have to say what the start order is going to be. And I went to a race recently, the Gravel Swiss, and they said, there was going to be a separate start for male elites, and then women elites, and then the mass start behind. And then they just ended up having a complete mass start. And they didn't tell us until the morning of the race. So the other thing is, I think if race organisers can just be clear about what they're going to do, at least then the women can choose, okay, I'm not going to go to that race because that's not a situation I'd like to be in. It's not, I don't
Right.
consider it fair racing. I don't consider it to be safe. And so I'm just not going to go. But if we don't know in advance of what the race is doing, then we can't make that choice.
You have the situation in the road events. You have the Grand Fondos, which is okay. You go there or you don't go there, but it's clear. And I know there's a lot of drafting advantages. I've been in some races where people just really ride as a duo. A race is a race. You have a team maybe, but if you have the advantage of a male drafting you, then it's that. No, it doesn't feel right to me. But do you think, back to the gravel racing, because what I'm hearing is that it's a new sport, so of course awareness is really, really important. But should the UCI give a more adequate framework for organizers because there's a lot of confusion, discussion, and I know that organizers are all also in talks with women. Okay, how should we do this? And it's you never make everybody satisfied. But if you have a set of rules that allows you is more maybe a little bit more confined to what because now it's open to everybody's opinion.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, and I think what's important is that we understand that to develop the professional sport, we need to have consistency. It's like having 4 different tennis series and having different rules for each one. Nobody's really going to understand what's going on, and players can't develop a technique or skill that's needed for that type of racing. So we need to have consistency is the first thing. And yes, I think the UCI need to change their regulations to give organisers rules that they have to adhere to. But they should also be more mindful of monitoring what organisers are doing and seeing where the problems are. And of course, there are different races. Gralloch in Scotland, which is one that I wrote an article for you about, they do an amazing job, and they had an hour or 2 hour, I think it was, time gap for the women to start behind the men. We had completely separate race, but it was all off-road. There was barely any road that you had to go on. So road closures weren't an issue, and they had the luxury of being able to do that across the course of a day. Whereas the Gravel 150, which has come under a lot of criticism from female professionals, was terrible. The men started almost immediately behind the women. They were in huge pelotons. It's a flat race. It's in a very built-up area. There were a lot of riders. I think upwards of 3,000 or something riders there. And so it's kind of a different scenario, but we still need to be able to say to all of the races, here's the model, here's what you should be aiming for. And if you can't do this, then you need to say up front, okay, we can't achieve this. Here's what we're going to do. And then at least riders have got the option. Or you say, okay, there's no elite races at that one.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
but you have to say, I think if you're going to say that, you have to say it for men and women. You have to say, okay, there's no elite racers there. We're just
Right.
going to have age groups there, because otherwise what we're doing is we're limiting the number of races that female professionals can go to, but not males. And I
Rightly.
don't know, I don't have the solution for that one, but I think it's something that needs to be talked about at least, because I don't
Yeah,
think
and
it's fair.
not the day before a race, because that's I'm also involved with racing in the Netherlands. The Netherlands is really densely populated. You mentioned gravel 150 is, but this is not Scotland or some remote area where we just, there's one farmer that we have to give a call and say, okay, there might be some
Yeah,
people on your premises today. It's like a zillion rules, but still, I understand. And what awareness is really important, I think, this year is that everybody is aware of the fact. Okay, it's not right. We should put this right and make some kind of well in advance. So if you have a choice as a rider to say, okay, not for me, I'm not doing this. Yeah, that's. But like you said, like the Swiss organizer, okay, this is what we're going to do, and at the end of the day, no, it's not. It's just going to be a mass start. It's also indicating that this is like, we're still in the growth to a professional sport, and everybody should be aware of that. We try to get things even, but it might take us a while. And I agree. UCI should not have like strict rules, but have like this buffer zone. Okay, this is what's possible. You make your own choices, because the Netherlands will be different than Mexico or Australia,
sure,
where the
sure,
worlds
sure, sure.
will be. And if you see a few kangaroos and nobody is, you have way more possibilities over there than in a densely populated area. So
Yeah, and what's amazing is that we're bringing gravel racing, the ability to go and do these single day gravel racing, to everyone. And so it's not that I want to restrict that. I don't want to say to people, well, we can't have that race because it's in too densely populated area. No, it's not that. It's that we need to have a starting point, and the starting point is not 1 or 2 minutes, because that's not a separate start, and it's not a fair race, and it's not safe. The start point is 30 minutes or an hour, and that's what we should be aiming for. And if we can aim for that, and the majority of races can get that time gap and have non-drafting rule, then we're going to at least be a lot further on than we are now. And one of the criticisms I've had for this suggestion about non-drafting between men and women is the UCI saying, well, we can't do that because we'd have to police it, and then we'd have to have lots of motorbikes on course. And we're in rural areas and gravel, we've got to protect the environment. We can't have motorbikes on course. We can't police it. And what I will say is that this doesn't need to be policed. There's so many people on course videoing. There's people taking photos. There's riders policing each other. And I've been in lots of races where there's no drafting rule, and it just works because women know they stay together, men know they stay together. And if somebody jumps on your wheel and they're not, it's a man jumping on my wheel, for example, I tell them, you're not, get off my wheel. There's no drafting. And as long as we can raise awareness, and it's consistent and it's in every race, then people will just know that that's not what's the done thing is. And we need to get that message out, not just to the female professional riders, but also to all the male amateur riders. And once that message is out, and that's just a rule of our sport, then it's no problem.
What's the gut feel, do you think, amongst the female pro peloton for this? Do the majority of women feel the same as you do, or do you think there are some who will a bit more stick in the mud, or they're happy with the situation how it is at the minute?
I think there are probably some who are, I don't think everyone's single-minded on this, but I haven't spoken to a professional female who has said to me, you know what, I just think we should carry on racing alongside the men.
Okay.
I think they accept that it's part of the growth of our sport, and that it's a difficult solution, and that there's not always a way for race organizers to make it happen straight away. And I always write to race organizers before I sign up for a race, and say, what's your start order going to be? What's the time gap going to be? What's the situation? And I've had answers from race organizers before saying, well, we're just going to follow the UCI regulations, and they don't agree with you. They think that it's fine to have a 1 minute gap. And so, we have to start at the beginning and change those regulations first. But what I would also say about, can we please all the women is, when did the players in a game get to choose what the rules are? We know what bike racing looks like. We know what it looks like for men. It should look the same for women. It shouldn't be a subset of male amateur racing, whether or not you prefer to ride with your husband or partner or have someone wait for you and draft you around. It's not your choice. We need women's professional racing to look the same as men's professional racing in order for us to grow the sport in visibility. At the moment, if you look for a picture of the female professional race at one of the UCI races where this is not done correctly, you just get a picture of a couple of women in a group of men. So how do we ever elevate the visibility of our sport if you're squinting at a photo going, well, is that a man or a woman?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. And the races where it's done properly, like Unbound, the UCI Gravel Worlds, I'll use as a loose example because it's only really done right for the first 20 women. After that, everyone's mixed up with the guys. But those races that are broadcast and you have a women's race on their own on telly, that's what people notice then, is the women know how to race together.
If you could gaze into a crystal ball, where do you think we will be in 2 or 3 years' time with this?
It's really hard to say. I really hope we are in a situation where I don't have to keep banging on about why this is important. But also, who knows what gravel's going? It's so exciting. It's exploded so much in the last few years, not just what we're talking about with the single day professional races, but in all walks of gravel, exploration, ultra gravel, you name it, it's all out there. Bikes are changing, technology is changing. It's so exciting and it's fantastic, and I have no idea what the next thing is going to be, but I'm hoping to be involved in some way.
Great.
But is there a way, because the article is clear. Please read the article on gravelunion.com. But you women, do you have like an organization, a lobby organization to talk to? Because everybody's like, one opinion is one opinion, but if you would be together in some kind of a, I don't know, maybe a gravel union, but understand what I mean? So then everybody needs to talk to the organization, because we need to get on the same page.
Yeah, that's such a good idea. And maybe it's something that I should think about.
There is already for the pro road women races, isn't there? The Cyclist Alliance.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's something they would consider, whether because there's now enough professional gravel races, enough women professional gravel races. You would get, as Carlo said, a kind of a stronger voice if you're speaking together.
You're absolutely right, and it's incredible what the professional road cycling, the female professional road cycling world has achieved in the last 5 years. Even it's amazing where it's gone to, and what I have very clearly seen. I do road racing as well. Obviously not at a world tour level, but I've done quite a bit of road racing, and I have a lot of friends who do female professional road racing, and it's just night and day from where it was 5 to 10 years ago. And that development and that opportunity for young cyclists now, that's what I'd like to see gravel moving towards. But without the visibility and without women wanting to stay in the sport, because that's the other problem we've got, is the women who who really disagree with the way that races are run now, the integrity aspect of drafting men. They don't really want to stay in gravel racing because they get so frustrated with getting beaten by women who they've dropped, who've been brought back up by groups of men. So we need the visibility so young women get into the sport, and then we need it to be fair and consistent so that women want to stay in it as well.
Okay. Well, let's hope that in 3, 4, 5 years, the leaps forward have been the same as we've seen.
It will most certainly be one of the topics that we have, more or less every year we speak to. We have an interview with Erwin Vervekke of the UCI.
We'll keep badgering him on it.
And I know that he's always very political about things because, like, it's the UCI, but it's. I think the plus on now for now is that it's on the agenda. People are talking about it.
I really hope that's the case. I've interviewed Owen for the article. I've had a number of long email exchanges with him, and I would say he's rattled by the article. He's rattled by my opinion on this, which isn't obviously just my opinion. And I think that's good. I think in order to affect change, we need to have some controversy around this, because without it, people are not going to understand even that there's an issue.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, well, we've got through the majority of our questions, but the two more quick ones to finish off. The first one is that you and your husband, Mark, run a podcast called The Brick Session, and we ought to talk about that and share the love a little bit. So what kind of things do you talk about in your podcast? And do you think, do you cover gravel related topics that our audience would be interested in?
Yeah, we've done some podcasts about gravel, about our experiences doing across Andes. I mean, all sorts of endurance events, Transcordilleras. Mark actually is a filmmaker. And I think the thing that would appeal to your audience more is probably his films. He is The Brick Session on YouTube. And we've got films on there from him doing bike packing to two Transcordilleras films, Costa Rica coast to coast, and then there's the Patagon Man films for me doing extreme triathlon. But there's a lot of interesting and content on there, I think. So
great. We'll put a link in the show notes on this, and so people can check it out.
Yeah, and maybe Film Friday, Ollie.
Film Friday for sure. It's a good opportunity.
And okay. I mean, hopefully we're going out to Thailand later on this year and making a film about the race out there in November.
We can definitely share the love for that one when keep our fingers crossed that all goes ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, final question. You're very well traveled and you've raced and ridden all over the place, but is there anywhere that you haven't been to yet that you would like to go to?
Oh, so many places. Where do I start? Yeah, we're so lucky to have all these opportunities to go and race, and there is a list as long as my arm on places that we still have to go to. We are, like you say, hooked on Transcordillera, so we will be going back to Colombia early part of next year. Colombia is huge and there are so many amazing places to explore there, so I'm looking forward to that. But in the process, we'll probably go up to Peru. I have wanted to visit Peru forever, and there's the Andean Raid now have a 3-race series up in Peru and Bolivia, and there's one in April, so we're looking at maybe doing that. But then on the other side of the globe, we're going to Thailand. Like I said, I've not been there for the Dustman UCI race. And then, Japan is somewhere else I'd be really interested to ride.
Okay.
And then lastly, just to quickly touch on it, you went and rode across Nepal. Was that last year?
This year.
Was it early this year?
Yeah,
a long time ago.
In February this year.
Yeah. And we've visited Nepal, but not ridden gravel bikes there. And we've got strong links with Nepal because we run a charity there for the education of children called Peak Education Nepal. And we're going back there this year, but without bikes. We're doing a sort of running adventure there. But I think on the agenda is a big gravel adventure across Nepal like you did.
I can highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Super. Right. Well, we've got through all our questions. Unless there's anything else you can think of, Carlo, that we should.
No, I think we covered most of what we wanted to discuss. Well, thank you very much for your time. And you're in your car right now, so it's strange. Your view will be a little bit better than ours. But,
it's amazing that we've managed to get through with such good reception up here on the
perfect
Isle of Tyre.
Significantly better than I was expecting. So it's great.
Yeah, let's head over to the thank yous and the outro. Well, thank you for joining us on this month's edition of Gravel Union Talks.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, glad to have you. If you have any suggestions for guests or topics you would like us to feature on future shows, then please reach out to us to Instagram or send us an email, info@gravelunion.cc. Our editor-in-chief, Mr. Ollie, will answer personally, and we'll do our best to fit it in our schedule. Please like and star us on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure to leave your hopefully positive remarks. Don't forget, if you like what you've heard on this episode, there's lots more great stories, features, and new species, and all the latest gravel event information over on the gravelunion.cc website. Special thanks to Martijn for our own music, and Ruben for editing the show. Well, hope to see you next time, or hear you next time on Gravel Union Talks. Cheers.